Imagine receiving a call from your 14-year-old grandson saying that his parents have disappeared. It seems like a worrying situation, but not something extraordinary, until you discover that behind this seemingly simple story lies one of the most shocking crimes ever recorded in the interior of Rio de Janeiro. An entire family was exterminated by those who were supposed to protect them, and the reason will leave you speechless. If this is your first time using our channel, be sure to subscribe and activate notifications. You won't want to miss any analysis of the most impactful cases in the world. On Sunday, June 22, a phone call would forever change the tranquility of the city of Itaperuna, located approximately 300 kilometers from the capital of Rio de Janeiro. On the other end of the line, a teenager was telling his paternal grandmother a story that seemed plausible. His 3-year-old brother had been injured by a piece of glass, cutting his mouth, and his parents had taken him to the hospital using a ride-hailing service. The problem? They hadn't called back. The grandmother, naturally worried about the family's disappearance, decided to go to the residence to personally check the situation. When she got there, she found only her eldest grandson, alone and apparently without clear information about the whereabouts of his family. Faced with the lack of convincing answers, she made the decision that would end up revealing a terrifying truth. She went to the civil police to report the disappearance. There is something deeply disturbing about how certain minds can simply switch off from reality and plunge into an abyss of calculating coldness. It is as if there is an internal switch that, once flipped, transforms an ordinary person into something completely different. Someone capable of planning and executing acts of unimaginable cruelty without showing the slightest trace of remorse. The civil police investigators immediately began their search, visiting several health facilities in Itaperuna and neighboring cities. They were looking for records of care for a small child with mouth injuries, as reported by the teenager. However, after thorough checks, they discovered that no hospital unit had recorded any incident that matched the description provided. On the 25th, the police decided to carry out a more detailed inspection of the family's residence. Externally, the house appeared normal, but a more careful analysis revealed disturbing signs. Suspicious bloodstains were found in specific points of the residence, particularly on the mattress in the couple's bedroom, presenting characteristics incompatible with a simple domestic accident. The area also emanated a strong, characteristic odor of decomposition. Additionally, investigators found traces of blood on clothing, some of which were partially burned, indicating clear attempts to conceal criminal evidence. This evidence was enough to call in the forensic team, who began working intensively at the scene in search of answers. During the forensic search, a suitcase containing clothes and 2 cell phones belonging to the teenager's parents was discovered. Faced with this physical evidence and the inconsistency of his initial version, the young man finally decided to reveal the truth. The confession was absolutely shocking. He had murdered his own parents and younger brother on the night of Saturday, June 21st. He first reported the facts to an uncle, later confirming everything to the police authorities. The coldness with which he described the events was described by investigators as particularly frightening. The reason given for such barbarity was apparently trivial. His parents had denied him permission to travel to Mato Grosso to meet in person a girl with whom he had been in a virtual relationship for approximately 6 years. According to his account, they had met through an online game when they were still young children and had maintained regular contact ever since through different apps and digital platforms. The young woman, now 15 years old and living in Mato Grosso, had allegedly pressured the boy to meet in person, even threatening to end the relationship if he did not make the trip. Unhappy with his parents' refusal and fearing losing this virtual connection, the teenager decided to take extreme action. The planning of the crime demonstrates a disturbing coldness of calculation. The young man knew exactly where his father kept a registered firearm, under the couple's mattress. The man had legal authorization as a collector, sports shooter, and hunter, keeping the weapon properly documented at home. On that fateful Saturday night, after making sure that all the family members were asleep, he carried out his macabre plan. First, he went to his parents' bedroom, grabbed the gun, and shot his father at point-blank range, hitting him in the head.
Immediately after, he turned the gun on his mother, who did not even have time to react, also shooting her in the head. As if this brutality were not enough, he went to his 3-year-old brother's room and shot the child, hitting him in the neck. When questioned by authorities about why he had taken the little boy's life, his answer was equally disturbing. He claimed that he did not want the child to grow up without his parents. After the murders, demonstrating full awareness of his actions, the teenager dragged the 3 bodies to the backyard of the residence. At the back of the property, there was a cistern where he deposited all the corpses, closing the lid to hide the evidence. During the days following the crime, the young man remained in the house, maintaining a facade of complete normality. He even cleaned parts of the crime scene, applied chemicals to the cistern where the bodies were, tried to burn blood-stained clothes, and hid objects that could link him to the murders. This behavior clearly shows that he was fully aware of the gravity of his actions and the legal consequences he would face. When he was finally taken to the police station, the teenager's behavior left a negative impression on everyone involved in the investigation. He was unusually calm and completely unrepentant. The officers reported that he spoke in an extremely cold and objective manner about the crimes, even saying that he would do it all over again if necessary. He described each stage of the murders in a wealth of disturbing detail. In his statements, the young man also mentioned having separated a suitcase with clothes and his parents' cell phones with the intention of fleeing after the crimes, objects that were later recovered by the police during the searches. One particularly revealing aspect was discovered during the investigation. The teenager had searched the internet for information on how to withdraw the severance pay fund of a deceased person. He mentioned that his father had approximately 33,000 reals in FGTS balance, raising suspicions that the crime could also have had a financial motivation in addition to the desire to travel to meet his virtual girlfriend. This discovery adds an extra layer of premeditation to the case, suggesting that the young man had planned not only the murders, but also how he would benefit financially from his parents' deaths to fund his future plans. The civil police of Mato Grosso were called to locate and question the teenager involved in the alleged online relationship, but so far there is no official information about this part of the investigation. Several points still need to be clarified, including whether she really exists, what her role was in the events, and whether there was any kind of direct influence that contributed to the boy's decision. The exterminated family was well known in the local community. Antonio Carlos Teixeira, the father, worked as a nurse and practiced shooting as a hobby. Nalia Teixeira, the mother, was a hairdresser and regularly used social media to share family moments, showing affection for her husband and children. The youngest son, Antonio Filio, affectionately called Toninho, was only 3 years old. Images shared on social media show a seemingly happy and united family, making the crime even more shocking for those who knew them. The discovery of the murders caused a stir throughout the city, with neighbors, family members, and local residents expressing disbelief at the brutality that had occurred so close to their homes. The case quickly gained national attention, being reported by several media outlets and becoming an episode of great public impact. The coldness demonstrated by the teenager and the cowardly nature of the crimes, killing people while they were sleeping, shocked public opinion. Legally, the young man was arrested and is charged with an offense similar to triple homicide with double aggravation. The aggravating factors include the use of resources that made it impossible for the victims who were sleeping to defend themselves, and the futile motive. The use of a firearm was also considered an aggravating factor. However, due to current Brazilian legislation, specifically the Child and Adolescent Statute, adults under the age of 18 are held accountable differently. In practice, this means that they may serve a maximum of 3 years in prison, being released upon reaching adulthood, regardless of the severity of the crimes committed. This situation raises important questions about the adequacy of the Brazilian legal system to deal with crimes of such gravity committed by minors. The possibility that someone capable of planning and executing a triple homicide with such cold blood could return to society in just 3 years is, to say the least, worrying.
Authorities continue to analyze the teenager's messaging history, looking for evidence that could prove whether there was direct encouragement from his alleged online girlfriend or other people.
A detailed psychological evaluation has been requested to understand his emotional profile and the factors that could have motivated such brutality. So far, the young man has not shown any sign of remorse for the crimes he committed. The coldness with which he acts, according to investigators, is one of the most shocking and frightening elements of the entire case. The bodies of Antonio Carlos, Nalia, and little Toninho were buried amid great emotion. Family and friends attended the wake in silence, many unable to understand how a tragedy of this magnitude could occur within a seemingly stable family. Detailed expert reports are being produced, and the analysis of the digital content of the parents and the teenagers' devices should bring new elements to the investigation. The expectation is that in the coming months, the Public Prosecutor's Office will file a formal complaint based on the civil police reports. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated case. Other similar crimes have occurred with alarming frequency in Brazil, involving teenagers who react extremely violently when contradicted by their parents or guardians. In May of last year, also in Rio de Janeiro, a 16-year-old teenager took the life of his adoptive parents after an argument over school absences. Luis Claudio Gonçalves Pinheiro, aged 58, and Mariana Valente Abude, aged 56, were killed by the son they had adopted at the age of 6. The crime occurred on May 24th in Jacarepaguá, after the couple forbade the young man from missing classes to rest before a jiu-jitsu class. The teenager attacked his parents with a hammer and later set fire to the house where the charred bodies were discovered. After committing the murders, he called the police, admitting to the crime and saying that he had gone out to have lunch with a friend. A brother who lived at another address confirmed that the young man indeed had an aggressive profile. Once again, we see the pattern of a disproportionate reaction to a parental refusal. In São Paulo, another shocking case occurred in May, involving a 16-year-old boy who murdered his adoptive parents and sister. Isaac Tavares dos Santos, aged 57, Solange Aparecida Gomes, aged 50, and Leticia, aged 16, were killed on May 17th. The crime was motivated by an argument the day before, when the parents called the teenager a bum and confiscated his cell phone, preventing him from using it in a school presentation. The teenager meticulously planned the murders, using a 9mm pistol that belonged to his father, who worked as a security guard. He even fired a test shot at the mattress to check the gun's operation. When his father arrived home with his sister around 1:20 p.m., the young man shot his father in the back while he was in the kitchen. He then shot Leticia in the face. When the mother returned from work at 7 p.m., she found the horrific scene and was also shot dead by the teenager. After the murders, he maintained a seemingly normal routine, going to the gym and the bakery, living in the house with the bodies for 2 nights. The crime took place on a Friday, and it was only on Sunday night that he called the police and confessed. He stated that he had stabbed his mother with a kitchen knife even after she was already dead, claiming that the anger would not go away. He said he did not regret what he had done and that he would do it again. These Brazilian cases contrast dramatically with similar situations in other countries, where the legal consequences are significantly different. In the United States, for example, 15-year-old Carly Gregg was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole after murdering her mother, Ashley Smiley, 40, in Mississippi. The crime took place in March of last year, and in September of that same year, she had already been tried and convicted. The murder was filmed by security cameras, showing the teenager firing 3 shots at her mother as if it were a video game. After the crime, Carly called her friend to report an emergency. When her friend arrived, she asked if she had ever seen a dead body and showed her mother lying shot on the floor. She later pretended to be her mother and sent messages from her mother's cell phone to her stepfather, asking what time he would be home. When her stepfather returned, she also shot him, but he managed to free himself, suffering only injuries to his shoulder. After a physical struggle, he managed to disarm the teenager, who tried to run away but was quickly captured by the police. The reason? Her mother had discovered that she was using drugs and reprimanded her, a completely common situation in the relationship between parents and teenage children. The fundamental difference is that in the United States, she will pay for her actions with her entire life, while in Brazil, teenagers in similar situations can be free in just 3 years. All these cases share worryingly similar elements: absolutely futile motives, deliberate planning, coldness in execution, complete absence of remorse, and an absurd disproportionality between the provocation and the violent reaction. The question remains, could harsher punishments act as a deterrent to these crimes? Could adolescents with this psychological profile be identified and treated before they reach the point of committing murder? What is most frightening about these cases is not only the brutality of the crimes, but the apparent normality of the young people involved until the moment when something turns them into cold, calculating killers. Seemingly stable families are torn apart by issues that should be resolved through dialogue, not violence. As more and more similar cases emerge, it is urgent to seriously discuss how our society is failing to identify and address these behaviors before they result in irreversible tragedies. Protecting adolescents is essential, but we also need to consider protecting society from individuals who demonstrate the capacity for such callousness and violence. The Itaperuna case is still under investigation, with authorities still trying to clarify all the details, especially the role of the alleged virtual girlfriend in the events. Regardless of the results, we already know that 3 more lives were lost for absolutely trivial reasons, and a 14-year-old boy became a triple murderer who may be free again in a few years. This case is still under development, and we will continue to monitor all updates. If you are interested in in-depth analyses of criminal cases, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Leave your opinion on these cases in the comments and suggest others that you would like to see analyzed. Your participation is essential to keep these important discussions always in the spotlight.